Hi everyone, I'm Sak here from LindSak and I'm joined by James Billingham, one of the directors and founders of the Skills Office Network. James, I'm in a fortunate position that we've known each other for quite a while. For people that haven't come across the Skills Office Network, I know we've done a number of projects together. Tell us a little bit about the Skills Office Network and kind of the services you provide.
Morning, Zach. So Skills Office Network, we're a team of education skills specialists. We've probably got over sort of 50 years combined service, mainly in apprenticeship provision. We offer a range of services that ranges from bid tender support. So I lead on sort of RoAPT bid support and additional tenders. So obviously that's very sort of busy at the moment with obviously awaiting the new register and the AAB ITT that's come out. We also offer ad hoc support services, so that could be supporting providers with things like data management, ILR uploads, making sure that ILR, there's no errors, so they're actually getting paid when they need to accurately. Audit compliance, that ranges from things such as support and self-assessment report, quality management, and also we do curriculum design as well. So we've got a team who work with organisations if they've got some small and large projects. It might be they've got some looking at material they've got, they want to sort of digitalise it or actually enhance it, and we've got a team who really sort of look at sort of bringing it to life ultimately. So we've got a lot of projects. It might be changing workshops, activities, working with them on schemes of work. So yeah, so quite a raft of services we provide as well.
And James, I know you've recently advertised on LindSak, and obviously LindSak is a platform linking organisations like yourself into the employability and skills market. And I know a lot of the work that you do is to support training providers, colleges, employability providers. If we look at apprenticeships, only because that's so much in demand at the moment, from your experience and the work that you've done, what are the biggest challenges that providers are facing that are delivering apprenticeships?
For new providers, what we find a lot of new providers, especially if we support them, for example, on RoAPT applications, when they're looking at apprenticeships, a lot of the providers might have delivered in a specific niche area, an area of expertise, so they've got years of experience delivering in an area commercially. When they look at apprenticeship delivery, there's a lot of challenges around. I mentioned that about the ILR uploads and actually we find a lot of providers sort of come back to us and find that actually we've got errors, we haven't been paid, we're trying to use a manual tool, or we've got a new system. So we find that one of the biggest areas is just actually making sure they understand how to get paid in terms of using ILR, what the data errors mean, how to be, from an audit and compliance perspective, make sure they're actually compliant. So those are some of the biggest challenges. Specific sort of areas around apprenticeships, obviously 20% off the job tracking, managing that in terms of delivery models that are compliant. So there's a lot of things which we find with new providers where they're fantastic in terms of delivering very niche areas in an area which they know. It's sort of wraparound parts where actually it's a bit of an eye-opener thinking, crikey, it's becoming an apprenticeship provider, and actually drawing down government funding comes with a lot of string attached, and it's sort of working with them all the back office side, which we find that we can offer real added value service in that area.
And it is, I suppose, James, it's interesting because when you become an apprenticeship provider, it's almost like, whilst a vast chunk is around delivery of the training, there's so much around that as well, where if you're not ticking those boxes and doing it properly, well, actually, it's not going to run smoothly as a machine. And obviously, another big thing that's happening at the moment is the register reopening and a refresh for all the providers. I suppose, what would your advice be for people going through that or about to go through that?
Yeah, so I've been closed for a year, so there's obviously a raft of providers there. It's ultimately supposed to be a dynamic procurement service, which obviously for a year it hasn't been so. So unfortunately, we had a knock-on effect where lots of providers have a whole raft of different areas delivering potentially different levels, are sort of waiting to get on there. And obviously we're waiting at the moment. Obviously, there's more guidance comes through in terms of what the new requirements will be. What we're advising potential clients or people interested in the register at the moment to do is, only last week there was new ESFA financial health assessment guidance, and so that's the first port of call really, because ultimately if you're not able to meet the requirements from a financial health assessment, really you can't go forward. So what we always say is that before we even start looking at what your capacity capability is, that's just the first part, is look at what your financials look like. And we sort of support providers just doing that sense check. We can't obviously give the definitive answer, but obviously we can look at accounts and actually say, look, based upon this, if you're looking at your profitability, your solvency, your gearing, this is, and sort of working that on a score, we can give them a steer. And that's always the first sort of advice we give. And actually that's the first starting point, as opposed to actually investing time, effort and money, whereby potentially it might be that you're not actually going to meet the sort of minimum requirements from a financial perspective. If a provider's, we believe from that, is actually either, in a good position on the financials, it's then really looking at, what's your capacity and capability like. So looking at obviously policies, processes, and really aligning them to apprenticeship delivery. So it's not about us, when we're giving support, sort of writing a whole tender or anything like that. It's really, they've got to take ownership of that, because ultimately it's their, if they're going to go on the register, it's their delivery. But so it's actually giving them the tools to do that, but also giving them some advice in terms of what the SFA are looking for. And one of the things that we're really, which we offer to as part of our service, is what we call an implementation plan. So it's not just about getting a submission, it's actually saying, this is what you said you do or will do, how you actually go from that part of submission to actually implementation. Because what we have found, a lot of providers have put a submission there, 16, 18 weeks have passed, haven't sort of looked at it again. They then get notification, they're looking at their sort of onboarding with the SFA, and there's a lot of work to do from this is what we said to do, to actually hit the ground running and then deliver. So that's the sort of advice we'd look at. In terms of providers who are going through a refresh or will be asked to go do a refresh, I think what we're actually saying is, look at original submission, look at actually saying what you were going to actually deliver and how you're going to deliver it, and actually sort of do a sense check really, and actually understand. And also the big emphasis as well around that occupational competency. So it's really, I think one of the things that we're anticipating is that obviously one of the criticisms is that a provider will get on the register, they'll say they deliver management, but then can actually deliver, in essence, a whole raft of different things without any sense and balances or checks. So obviously that's going to be one of the areas around making sure you've got the expertise and the capacity to deliver. Is going to be one of the key things to look at and demonstrate as well.
And James, if I was an apprenticeship or an aspiring apprenticeship provider, now what part of my journey should I be thinking, right, let me reach out to James from the Skills Office Network?
I think if you've actually identified that the apprenticeship market is an area you want to go into, I think it's a lot of companies I speak to over the last couple of weeks, they'll go in there thinking, we think it's a good thing to do, but they don't really understand what the actual sort of requirements are in terms of those audit Ofsted. What does that actually mean? So I think for ourselves is one, obviously explore, speak to other providers in the same area, potentially in the area, look at other networks, mechanisms, ALP, to sort of try and find out additional information. And likewise for ourselves, just if you make contacts, we're passionate about what we do, but also better to give sort of advice which is impartial as well. So actually say, look, before you make a decision, this is all the things you need to consider to make sure it's right for yourself as a business. Because a lot of businesses we talk to, we just we'll say, look, actually we don't think you're in a position, you need to look at different avenues. That might be avenues around about supporting commercial training as a supporting provider, or it might be delivering a niche area, but perhaps if you haven't got the infrastructure to actually deliver apprenticeships, I think make sure you understand what you getting yourselves into and understand what's actually involved.
And James, I'm seeing it more and more often where you are looking at kind of commercial businesses or commercial training businesses trying to venture into the apprenticeship market. And I suppose similarly, if I was an established training provider now or an established college, if you were to list kind of questions or issues that they're going through, that should make them think, you know what, let me put a call into James from the Skills Office Network. What kind of issues would they be facing to pick up the phone to you?
I think from understanding obviously Ofsted requirements, understanding what the education inspection framework involves, because it's like employer providers is a good example. Sometimes they might be a levy paying employer and they consider there's an opportunity or actually a return of investment if they deliver that training themselves because they know their business. But then when you break it down in terms of the additional requirements, is that actually going to meet that return on investment? Is it actually worth that if they're going to have to obviously invest in additional teams? One of the examples we use is like have they got the the quality assurance process to actually meet the Ofsted requirements and the additional things that they need to do. So I think that's a key part, is actually understand what the requirements are, and if that's actually going to add value to their business as well, because some businesses will actually look at it and say, actually, I'm probably better sticking at what we do, as opposed to having to enter apprenticeship market with, to be honest, a lot of bureaucracy in a lot of areas, and in terms of a lot of sort of hurdles you have to jump through to actually sort of deliver high quality provision. And sometimes a lot of providers get frustrated saying, actually, I entered it to deliver training, but I didn't realise I'd have to do X, Y, and Z in addition to that. I wish I'd actually just focused and kept it being commercial. So I think it's, I say, being sort of forearmed and forewarned, and really understanding, going in there with your eyes open to understand what that investment and infrastructure looks like to make sure you're delivering high quality apprenticeship provision.
And James, from what you've said, it almost sounds like, irrespective of where you are in that journey in the apprenticeship space, be that startup, be that an existing provider, be that an existing provider who's got some challenges, there's something at the Skills Office Network in form of a product or in form of a consultancy that you can support with, can't you?
Definitely, and likewise, we also say we've got a network of partners we work with, and that's across the country. That's across sectors, delivering ranging from level 2 up to degree apprenticeships. And like sometimes we'll speak to a potential company who's interested in going into training in a very technical area, and we'll say, look, have a conversation with our partners. They've been through that journey, so don't take it just from us, but actually speak to someone who actually had to go through that. Sometimes pain, sometimes obviously looking through that journey they've been on, so they can actually get it sort of firsthand directly from potentially organisations that have been in that very similar position. But as you say, we offer a range of services, and it's likewise, more importantly for us, is giving good advice, because I think ultimately we're not there just to sell a product. It's actually got to be the right product if it's right for you at the right time. And for us, it's about long-term relationships. It's not just giving a quick intervention using the RoAPT support service. It's not about doing a quick intervention of giving us some support around guidance around that. It's actually saying, actually, that's one element, what's next, and hopefully it's a long-term partnership where we're working together. And likewise, some companies we work with, it's very much like that. It's just a bit of a soundboard ultimately. It's not about saying, can we use you to do this and this and this? It's actually saying, what do you think about this? What would you do? And I think it's all about that partnership working. It's hard enough out there at the moment, sort of as a business. So I think the more sort of support or soundboard you can get, I think the better.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And James, I know that you're on LindSak at the moment, so anybody watching who wants to get in touch with Skills Office Network and James Billingham, you should be able to click the link below and takes you straight through to the Skills Office Network. But James, really appreciate your time today. It's been great finding out a little bit more about what Skills Office Network does.
Perfect. No, likewise.
Yeah, and good luck with the register reopening. Sounds like busy and exciting times.
Yeah, definitely. March is no holidays for me the next couple of months.
No, perfect. You take care. Thanks, James.
Yeah, speak soon. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Bye.